All right, so have you ever wondered, like, why are some countries, like, super rich,
Yeah.
and others are kind of struggling to get by?
It's a question that's puzzled people for ages, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, it's this huge mystery.
And we got this great FinShots article from a listener about the Nobel Prize in economics this year.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually tackled this exact question, like, why are some nations wealthy and others not?
Makes you think, right?
Yeah, it does.
Like, take the U.S. and India.
Okay.
Both were colonized, but they ended up on totally different paths. The U.S. is like this global economic superpower.
Yeah.
And India, well, they're still catching up.
Yeah, so what's the deal?
Yeah. What is the deal with that?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, the thing is, it's not just like random chance or where they're located on a map.
Okay.
It goes way deeper.
So, like, what are we talking here?
Yeah.
Like, what's the secret sauce?
We're going to uncover how, like, history, the actual systems we build, even crazy stuff like disease,
Oh, wow.
actually played a role in shaping, like, the whole economic landscape we see today.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's look at this city Nogales.
Okay.
It's literally split down the middle by the U.S.-Mexico border. It's like this real-life experiment,
Yeah, it is.
Like two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that Nogales has, like, shared history culture.
Right.
Even families that span both sides.
Oh, wow.
But the difference in wealth is startling.
Yeah.
Like, on the U.S. side, you've got higher incomes, better schools, people even live longer.
Wow.
But step across that border and it's a whole different story.
Same city, same background, but such different outcomes.
Yeah, it really makes you think, right?
Yeah, it does. So I guess location isn't everything then?
Right.
So then what's the deal with these systems you mentioned?
All right, so this is where our Nobel Prize winners, Acemoglu, Johnson, and Robinson,
Okay.
they kind of blew the lid off things.
Okay.
They argue that colonial powers, they didn't treat all colonies the same way. They set up what they call extractive versus inclusive systems.
Okay, extractive sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Can you break that down for me?
Imagine like the Roman Empire.
Okay.
They took taxes, resources, all flowing back to Rome,
Right.
not really building up the places they conquered.
That makes sense.
And that's kind of similar to what happened in densely populated colonies like India. They had existing systems the colonizers could just like tap into.
So they just took advantage?
Yeah, basically take their labor, take their resources, but not invest back in a way that helps everyone in the long run.
So it was less about building up the place and more about just taking what they could get.
Yeah, you got it.
And what about these inclusive systems then? Were there any colonies where things were more balanced?
Think about like Athenian democracy.
Okay.
It encouraged participation, right? And fostered a totally different legacy. That's more similar to what happened in colonies like the U.S.
Okay.
Smaller populations meant European settlers, they actually had to build lives there, not just extract stuff.
So they had more skin in the game?
Yeah, exactly.
So they demanded rights, fairer systems, things that helped the colony grow in the long run.
It's kind of like they accidentally planted the seeds of their own future success.
That's wild.
It is.
But why didn't this happen everywhere then? You'd think all colonies with smaller populations would become economic powerhouses.
Well, hold on, because now it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
It wasn't just about population.
Oh.
Something as unexpected as disease
Disease, okay.
played a huge role. We're not talking about the sniffles here.
Okay.
More like malaria.
Oh, wow.
Rampant in tropical regions, deadly to Europeans who had no immunity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
These Nobel guys, they actually found data on British troop deaths in India versus back in Britain.
Oh, wow.
The difference was shocking.
Really?
That fear of disease, it really dictated where Europeans decided to settle and what kind of government they set up.
So if you're risking your life, you want more control, right?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Were there any exceptions to this whole disease thing, though?
Let's look at Australia for a second. Okay.
It started as a penal colony.
Right.
Many of those early settlers were convicts sent there because it was less deadly disease-wise than, say, India.
Interesting.
But here's the kicker, because they were convicts demanding rights.
Okay.
They kind of accidentally pushed for a more inclusive system.
So they ended up better off in a way.
Yeah, in a way.
That's crazy, a penal colony turning into a thriving nation.
It is pretty wild.
But let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about how these systems got set up,
Okay.
but what about after independence? Why didn't newly freed nations just ditch those exploitative systems right away?
Ah, well, that's where economists bring in this concept called the commitment problem.
Okay, commitment problem. Sounds kind of like relationship drama.
You could say that.
All right, I'm all ears.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
So even when leaders knew a system was bad, changing It meant risking everything.
Like, what do you mean?
Their power, their wealth.
Oh, wow.
There was this lack of trust. Would people actually reward them for making things fairer?
Or would it just lead to chaos and them losing everything?
So it's like you need to rebuild your house,
Okay.
but you're terrified to tear down the old rickety walls
Yeah.
because you're scared you'll end up with nothing.
Exactly.
And this fear led to broken promises, right?
Sadly. Yeah.
Leaders would talk about change, but when things calmed down, it was back to the old ways.
You got it.
So how does all this connect back to India then?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Right, so stay tuned, everyone. We're going to uncover how those colonial legacies and this struggle for change have shaped India's journey. All right, we're back, and man, my head is spinning from that first part.
Yeah, it's a lot to process,
It
right?
really is. Like, who knew colonialism, geography, even disease had such a huge impact on why some countries are doing so well and others are not?
It really highlights how interconnected everything is.
It does.
Yeah.
But knowing all this, like, what can we actually do about it?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. Can countries actually break free from their past?
Well, the work of these Nobel Prize winners,
Yeah.
it gives us some hope. It's not just about pointing fingers, it's about finding solutions.
Okay, less doom and gloom, more action plan.
Yeah.
I like it. So where do we even begin?
Well, the first thing to remember
Good.
is that history matters, but it's not destiny.
Okay,
Just because a country was stuck in a bad system doesn't mean they're doomed to stay poor forever.
so there's hope for change.
Oh, absolutely. It comes down to recognizing the power of those inclusive systems we talked about.
Right, the ones that protect property rights, encourage businesses,
Exactly.
and make sure everyone has a fair shot.
Those are the key ingredients for long-term growth.
So it's not about throwing money at the problem. It's about creating the right environment for things to flourish on their own.
You nailed it. And that means tackling things like corruption,
Okay.
making sure the law applies to everyone, giving everyone access to opportunities, not just a select few.
Right. That makes sense. But changing these deeply ingrained systems,
Yeah.
that's got to be a huge undertaking. Where do you even start?
You're right, there's no magic bullet. But there are countries that have successfully made that transition from those extractive systems to something much more inclusive.
Oh, really? Like who?
Take South Korea, for example.
Okay.
Back in the mid-20th century, they were actually poorer than many African nations.
Wow.
They had gone through Japanese colonialism, a devastating war.
Yeah.
The odds were stacked against them, but through a series of very deliberate policy choices, they completely transformed their economy.
So what did they do? Like what kind of policy choices?
Well, they went all in on education,
Okay.
realizing that a skilled workforce is a nation's greatest asset.
Makes sense.
They focused on industries that could export goods globally, bringing in money,
Right.
and they stabilized their political situation,
Wow.
making it a more attractive place to invest.
Mm.
All of this, plus a culture known for hard work and embracing new ideas,
Yeah.
led to South Korea's incredible economic rise.
Wow. It's amazing how a nation can basically rewrite its destiny from poverty to a global powerhouse. But I imagine this transformation didn't happen overnight.
Definitely not. It was a gradual climb with setbacks along the way, but it shows that with the right approach, positive change is possible.
So what's the big takeaway here? If other countries want to follow in South Korea's footsteps, what should they prioritize?
Strong leadership is key.
Oh.
Leaders who are willing to make tough choices,
Yeah.
even if it means ruffling some feathers,
Right.
or facing pushback from those who benefit from the old broken system.
So you're talking about leaders who put the long-term good of their nation above short-term gains or personal power.
Exactly. Leaders who understand that investing in their people,
Right?
encouraging new ideas, building a fair system,
Yeah.
it's a win for everyone in the end.
That's a tall order in a world where short-term thinking and self-interest often win out. Are there any other examples of countries successfully making this kind of leap?
Absolutely. Botswana is another fascinating case.
Okay, I'm listening.
When they gained independence in 1966, they were one of the poorest countries in the world.
Wow.
But unlike many other newly independent nations, they had a strong, inclusive system already in place.
Wait, they were set up for success right from the start. How did that happen?
It's a combination of factors. Their population was relatively small and unified,
Okay,
making it easier to agree on things and establish a system based on the rule of law.
that makes sense.
Plus, their leadership was wise.
Hmm.
They prioritized education and infrastructure.
The foundations of a strong economy.
Exactly.
So instead of falling into that commitment problem trap,
Right.
They proactively built a system that fostered trust and cooperation right from the beginning.
Precisely. And the results speak for themselves. Botswana saw decades of steady economic growth,
Wow,
becoming one of the most prosperous nations in Africa.
that's incredible.
Their story shows the power of good governance and a long-term vision.
So inspiring. These stories are great, but what about countries that are still dealing with the fallout from those extractive systems?
Good question.
What advice would you give them?
The first step is facing the truth.
Yeah.
They need to acknowledge the historical factors that shaped their current situation,
Right.
understand the roots of their inequality,
Yeah.
and see how the ghosts of those old systems are still impacting them.
So owning their history, both the good and the bad, is crucial.
It's not about dwelling on the past.
Okay.
It's about using it as a foundation for a better future.
Right. Once you understand where you came from, you can start to build a path forward.
Exactly.
But what are some tangible actions countries can take to build a more inclusive system?
Education is key. Investing in quality education for all citizens creates a skilled workforce, fuels innovation, allows people to move up in the world.
It's like giving everyone the tools they need to succeed. What else?
Infrastructure is another big one.
Right.
Think roads, bridges, communication networks.
Right.
These things facilitate trade, connect communities, jumpstart economic activity.
It's like building the arteries and veins of a healthy economy,
Perfect analogy.
allowing things to flow freely. What else?
Healthcare is essential.
Of course.
A healthy population is a productive one. When people have access to good healthcare, they live longer, contribute more.
Right.
The whole economy benefits.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It is.
Education, infrastructure, healthcare.
Yeah.
But these things require resources.
Yeah.
Where do countries, especially those struggling to get by, find the funding for these ambitious initiatives?
It's a balancing act. One strategy is to attract foreign investment by creating a stable and predictable environment for businesses.
So making it attractive for companies to set up shop and create jobs?
Exactly. Another approach is to seek help from international organizations,
Okay.
like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. They offer loans and grants for development projects.
It's like a global safety net, helping nations get back on their feet. But I know foreign aid sometimes comes with strings attached.
Yeah.
How can countries ensure they're not just trading one form of dependency for another?
Transparency and accountability are key. Countries need clear rules about how aid money is used.
Right.
And they have to make sure it's going towards projects that benefit the people,
Yeah.
not just lining the pockets of corrupt officials.
So no more shady deals or disappearing funds?
Ideally, no transparency builds trust,
Right.
both within the country and internationally. It shows that a nation is serious about using resources wisely.
This is all really insightful, but it feels like a lot to tackle. Are there any simpler, more fundamental things countries can do to get the ball rolling?
One powerful step is to encourage entrepreneurship.
Okay, I like that.
Think of it as planting seeds. You create an environment where people are inspired to take risks, start businesses, pursue their ideas,
Yeah?
and watch as those seeds grow into a vibrant ecosystem of opportunity.
I love that analogy.
Hmm.
But how can governments actually cultivate that entrepreneurial spirit?
They can start by making it easier to do business.
Okay.
Cut the red tape, simplify regulations,
Yeah.
streamline the process of getting licenses, and provide access to credit. These things remove barriers and allow entrepreneurial energy to flourish.
So less bureaucracy, more support.
Mm.
Makes sense.
Mm.
What about education? Does that play a role in fostering entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. Education is about more than just traditional subjects.
All right.
It's about equipping people with the skills they need to thrive in a rapidly changing world.
Right.
Critical thinking, problem solving, financial literacy.
Yeah.
These are the tools that empower individuals to build their own futures.
So it's about giving people the tools they need to not only survive, but thrive. What I'm gathering is that a lot of this comes down to empowering individuals.
You hit the nail on the head. Economic development is about creating a system where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential and contribute to the collective good. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about people and their aspirations.
That's a powerful reminder that economics is ultimately about human lives, not just abstract concepts. But we focus a lot on governments and systems. What about the role of individuals in all of this? Can they really make a difference on their own?
Of course, governments and institutions set the stage.
Oh.
But individuals are the actors who bring the economy to life. Think of it like a play.
Okay.
The government builds the set and writes the script.
Yeah.
But it's the individual actors who bring the story to life.
So it's a collaborative effort. Systems create the environment, but individuals provide the energy, the ideas, the drive.
Precisely. Individuals fuel economic growth by embracing education, coming up with new ideas, starting businesses, investing in their communities. It's about taking ownership of your own economic destiny while also pushing for a system that supports everyone.
We've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about the importance of institutions, the power of education and infrastructure,
Yeah.
the need for social safety nets, and the role of individual initiative.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take in.
It's a complex web, that's for sure. But at the heart of it all lies a simple truth. Economic development is about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to live a healthy, fulfilling, and dignified life.
That's a beautiful sentiment, but also a daunting challenge.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to make that vision a reality?
The work of these Nobel laureates is a good place to start. Their research provides a framework for understanding what truly drives prosperity. It's like they've given us a map and a compass to navigate this complex terrain.
So the knowledge is there, now it's up to us to use it wisely.
Exactly. It's up to us to advocate for policies that promote inclusivity,
Right.
to challenge systems that perpetuate inequality,
Yeah.
and to work together to build a future where prosperity is shared by all.
It's a powerful call to action.
Yeah.
But before we get too carried away with global solutions,
Okay.
let's bring it back to our original question. Remember India, the nation still playing catch-up.
Ah, yes. India, a land of ancient wisdom, vibrant culture, and a complex economic story.
So how does everything we've discussed apply to India's unique journey? What can we learn from their successes and struggles?
That's a question best explored in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, so stay tuned, everyone. We're going to unravel the threads of history, policy, and progress that have shaped India's economic path. All right, so we've explored how colonialism, those systems countries build, even crazy stuff like disease, has shaped why some nations are thriving while others are struggling. Now let's focus on India
Okay.
and see how everything we've learned applies to their economic journey. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. India's story is fascinating. It's this blend of ancient success, colonial setbacks, and a recent resurgence that offers valuable lessons for everyone, really.
Before British rule, India wasn't just another country.
No, not at all.
They were like a global economic force.
You got it. Think thriving textile industry spice trade that spanned continents.
Wow.
Skilled artisans whose work was coveted worldwide. India was a major player in global commerce.
So what happened? How did British colonization change their trajectory?
Well, as we discussed earlier, the British implemented those extractive systems. You know, the ones designed to benefit the empire, not the colony. It wasn't about building up India, it was about funneling its wealth elsewhere.
So the resources, the profit that were flowing out of India, not circulating within it.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But didn't the British also bring some positive developments? Didn't they build infrastructure, introduce education?
They did build some infrastructure, mainly railroads.
Okay.
But it was often designed to move resources out of India more efficiently, not necessarily to improve the lives of everyday Indians. And while they did set up some educational institutions, access was limited.
Right.
And the curriculum often prioritized British interests over Indian ones.
So it was a mixed bag,
Yeah,
with some developments serving the colonizers' agenda more than the needs of the Indian people.
right.
And this legacy of extraction had a lasting impact shaping India's economy even after independence in 1947.
Absolutely. Imagine trying to build a modern economy with the remnants of a system designed to exploit you. It's a daunting task.
Yeah. It is. So when India gained independence, what was their approach to rebuilding their economy?
Well, in those early decades, they adopted a socialist model.
Okay.
Think central planning, state control of major industries, a big emphasis on becoming self-sufficient.
So a very hands-on approach from the
Yeah.
government trying to guide the economy in a specific direction. How did that work out?
There were some successes. Literacy rates improved, healthcare expanded.
Okay.
But the model also had its drawbacks. All that bureaucracy,
Mhm.
the lack of competition, the limits on private businesses.
Yeah.
It stifled innovation and growth.
So the intention might have been good, but the system itself created roadblocks. It's like trying to run a marathon with weights strapped to your ankles.
Exactly. And by the 1980s, it became clear that India needed a change. They needed to loosen the reins and let the economy breathe.
So what did they do? Did they completely abandon the socialist model?
Not entirely, but they did implement major economic reforms in the 1990s.
Okay.
They liberalized the economy, welcomed foreign investment, reduced the role of the state. Think of it as opening the windows and letting fresh air revitalize the house.
A more market-driven approach. Did this shift have a positive impact?
Absolutely. These reforms were a turning point. They unleashed this wave of entrepreneurship, sparked innovation, ignited economic growth.
Wow.
This is the period where you see India's economy really start to take off.
It sounds like they finally found a formula that worked. But I imagine this growth hasn't been without its challenges.
What are some of the hurdles India still faces today in its pursuit of prosperity?
One persistent issue is inequality.
Okay.
While India's economy has grown significantly, the benefits haven't reached everyone equally. There's a stark gap between the wealthy elite and the vast majority who still struggle with poverty.
So it's not enough to just grow the pie they need to make sure it's shared more equitably. What other obstacles stand in India's way?
Infrastructure is a big one.
Okay.
Despite progress, India still lags behind in terms of roads, bridges, ports, reliable power supply. It's like having a high-performance engine in a car with weak brakes and flat tires.
Well, I like that. You can't go as fast or as far as you could with a fully functional vehicle.
That's a great analogy. What other systemic issues are they grappling with?
Corruption, unfortunately, remains a major problem. Bribery, nepotism, lack of transparency. These things create roadblocks for businesses, discourage investment, erode public trust.
Right.
It's like a leak in the pipes, draining away resources and hindering the flow of progress.
So tackling corruption is crucial for long-term sustainable growth. Are there any other areas that need attention?
Education is key, as we've discussed. India has made progress in expanding access, but the quality of education often falls short, particularly in rural areas. It's not just about getting kids into classrooms, it's about ensuring they receive an education that equips them for the demands of a modern, globalized economy.
So it's about investing in teachers, updating curriculum, making sure education is relevant to the jobs of the future?
Exactly. India's challenges are real, but it's important to acknowledge the bright spots, too. There's a lot working in their favor.
Okay, I'm ready for some good news. Tell me what makes you optimistic about India's prospects.
For starters, India has a young and vibrant population. Their median age is just 28. That's a demographic dividend many countries would love to have.
Wow.
It's a workforce full of energy, ready to contribute to build a better future.
A youthful population eager to work and contribute. That's a huge asset. What else is going well for them?
Their tech sector is booming. Companies like Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, Wipro,
Yeah.
they've put India on the global map as a tech and innovation hub.
So they've got youthful energy and technological prowess. What a powerful combination. Any other reasons to be hopeful?
India also has a rich cultural heritage, a vibrant democracy, and a growing middle class. Combined with the government's efforts to address inequality, improve infrastructure, tackle corruption, there's a solid foundation for continued progress.
So while challenges remain, India's economic story is one of resilience, adaptation, and immense potential. It's been an incredible journey exploring this topic with you. We've traveled from the Nogales paradox to the impact of colonialism, from the commitment problem to the inspiring stories of nations like South Korea and Botswana. What are some of the key takeaways you hope listeners will walk away with?
One is that institutions really matter.
Yeah.
The rules of the game, the systems that govern a society, they profoundly shape its economic destiny.
Yeah.
It's not just about luck or geography. It's about creating a level playing field that allows everyone to participate and thrive.
So building a system that fosters opportunity for all is crucial. What else should listeners keep in mind?
History matters, but it doesn't have to define a nation's future.
Right.
Countries can overcome difficult legacies through deliberate policy choices and a commitment to building a more just and inclusive society.
It's about learning from the past, not being chained to it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
Remember, economics isn't just about numbers and graphs. It's about people, their aspirations, their struggles, their potential. If we truly want to understand why some countries are rich and others poor, we need to approach the question with both intellectual rigor and a deep sense of empathy.
That's a powerful message to end on. Thank you for guiding us through this complex and fascinating topic. It's given me and hopefully our listeners a lot to think about.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, the pursuit of knowledge is a journey, not a destination. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep striving for a world where prosperity is shared by all.